Coming up on today's Race Room, you've got me talking about crashes in WRC, me talking about Bernie and a gun, and me introducing you to Moaning Marthas Son. It's all about me and you. Welcome to the Race Room. Here's this week's news. The F1 teams are on holiday, a 2-week gentleman's agreement which forms the basis of the August break. The factories themselves on complete lockdown. No one is allowed to send an email from a company account, and it gives a chance for those hard-working mechanics to see their family and their friends. Even Rosanna has taken a 2-week break, leaving me here on my own. She was, however, in the WRC event in Finland last week. Here's her report.
Sebastian Ogier's won his 5th rally this year. He had a bit of trouble finding his rhythm to start with, but once he got into the rhythm, he let Mads Osberg and Thierry Neuville battle it out for 2nd place. Thierry finally took 2nd, winning the power stage, and Mads took 3rd place.
I think never has been known by a non-Scandinavian driver, and yeah, I feel just so good in this car, and I just want to thank a lot the team for the job.
There was plenty of other motorsport racing going on throughout the weekend. DTM visited Moscow for the first time and the Moscow Raceway, a little demonstration in front of the Kremlin before they headed 3 hours into the east of the country and to the Moscow Raceway. Saturday qualifying, though, was interrupted by Vladimir Putin. He wanted to fly his plane over the circuit and therefore shut the airspace around the circuit for 2 hours, meaning the helicopters couldn't take off the medical team or indeed the TV team. It put Mike Rockenfeller on pole position and he led from lights to flag, taking a fantastic victory and putting him 27 points in the lead of the championship. There was also a first for the World Touring Cars as they visited Argentina for the first time and the Termas de Rio Hondo circuit that's been built for MotoGP in 2014. It turned out to be a great track for touring cars, with Ivan Muller taking pole position and taking race 1 victory. Loads of action behind him, but in the second race, Jose Maria Lopez, Pichito Lopez, on pole position, and he also managed to dominate the race to take a first victory and a rookie victory, his very first appearance ever in World Touring Cars, and a very famous victory in Argentina for the local man. IndyCars were at Mid-Ohio, a fantastic venue, really undulating and a very big challenge for drivers. We actually had a race that was completely green flag throughout, with Charlie Kimball eventually taking victory just ahead of Simon Pagenaud in a thrilling 2-stop race. The strategy incredibly important in IndyCar. Helio Castroneves still leads the championship despite not having yet scored a victory. Vladimir Putin's situation in DTM this weekend was very strange. He wanted to fly over the circuit in his jet, therefore shutting the airspace. The medical helicopters couldn't take off, and a red flag had to be flown in DTM qualifying. And we've had many situations where helicopters can't take off, and therefore it's delayed Formula 1 sessions, say at Spa, or power failures at various race circuits around the world, Spa, Sonoma, and in fact this last weekend as well in Argentina in World Touring Cars. But there are unusual red flag situations that have also happened this year in motorsport, and I have 3 objects here. We have a rubber duck, we have a camera, and we have a shoe. And one of these 3 hasn't caused a red flag, but which one is it? The shoe. We'll get rid of that. Other 2 have caused red flags in sessions in motorsport. Let's start with a duck. Unsurprisingly, it's in America, and it was one of the practice sessions in Detroit. A family of ducks walks across the circuit, narrowly missed by 2 Indy cars, and therefore the red flag was flown to allow the family to cross safely and get to the other side without any harm. In NASCAR, one of the spider cams that was suspended over the stadium, connected by a load of wires, one of the wires came loose and actually was in front of the pack of cars as they came round the oval. The wire got caught up in one of the cars, whipping the suspension off and damaging many cars. NASCAR decided, in fact, to red flag the session to allow the cars to be repaired and also to get rid of the wires from the spider cam. So those are some very strange red flag situations alongside Mr. Putin's disruption in DTM this weekend. At John McCurdy, some new images of how the new F1 Concord Agreement took shape have emerged. First one of Mr. E dealing with the teams. We kick off this week with an absolutely amazing bit of photoshopping. Bernie Eccleston is really trying to force the Concord Agreement through, and the team's very resistant to it and actually losing out a little bit, giving more control to the FIA. But there's a couple of these photos and they've been really well done. I'm not sure that is actually a photo of Bernie with a gun, but it's pretty close to looking very real. At Voice of Rally, synchronised pressure checking at Citroën Racing. What a day for incredible imagery. And that is why I absolutely love rallying. The drivers, they're working on their own cars. You'd never see that in Formula One or any sort of circuit racing, but they're checking the tyre pressures before the start of the stage. Finland, one of the toughest rallies, and of course, Sébastien Ogier taking victory, but Citroën really working very, very hard. And a really impressive performance, by the way, from Chris Meek. We didn't really mention too much about him, but that is an image of rallying right there. At Huff Sport, what a day. So I see that the voiceover man gave up with trying to work out what thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up, monkey with eyes over here and here and here, and basically it describes what a crazy weekend, in fact, the World Touring Car races were. If you haven't seen them, make sure you check them out and make sure you at least see the highlights, because despite the lights to flag victory for the front two, it was absolute pandemonium behind, and Rob Huff, the World Touring Car champion, showing exactly why in a series of emoticons. At Jason Plato, sitting at home watching the record of Snetterton, turned off in disgust. Ah yes, Jason Plato. There was also British touring cars this weekend at Snetterton, and Jason ended up on his roof at one of the races, so plenty of action in British as well as World Touring Cars. And Jason clearly flew back from Snetterton to Oxford in his helicopter, sat down to watch the highlights on ITV1 and wasn't particularly happy about it. It was a very tough weekend for the MG team. At Lewis Hamilton, chilling in the studio. Hashtag Studio Flow. The saga of Lewis Hamilton continues. Last week we looked at Nicole Scherzinger's Twitter feed to see her eating in Nando's, and this week, whilst he's got some time off and not allowed at the factory, Lewis Hamilton is recording a record. Apparently he's rapping, and this is him chilling out in the studio. I dread to think what that's going to sound like. Well, some sad news now. Moaning Martha seems to have gone AWOL over this August period, but we have managed to track down her son, Dave Spanner.
That's me. Spanner by name, Spanner by nature. I used to think it was like the Hulk, you know, Bruce Banner, but it's Bruce Banner. If Kimi Räikkönen is not going to Lotus and he's not going to Ferrari and he might be going to Red Bull, and if Vettel says he'd rather have Kimi Räikkönen than Alonso at Red Bull, and if Alonso's still at Ferrari but might go to Red Bull, and it's confusing. It's like trying to keep track of who's in the Sugar Babes and also who's in Pussycat Dolls. I'll tell you one person who's not in Pussycat Dolls anymore, Lewis Hamilton. I call that my Sweeney roll. Is that supposed to be there? Right. Now, there's a massive hole in that. See, what I don't understand, right, is why there's been so much controversy about DRS this week, because DRS is all right, but in the cricket, I mean, they've got a box, I know that. There's fast and there's spin, just like in racing, and, you know, like there's over, like Mark Webber's career. But how does DRS work in cricket? I don't understand. I tell you what, though, if it makes game go quicker, that's a good thing, because it's a very slow game. Hang on a minute, I just thought, are you a cameraman? That's a camera. But Bernie says it's not safe to film around here. You're not supposed to be here. Watch out!
Coming up this weekend in motorsport, we have... not a lot, actually. In fact, there is not a single international motorsport event happening this weekend. The only race of some sort of importance, British GT at Brands Hatch, but it's not international, and therefore we're not giving it a sticker. What is international, though, is where I'm going this weekend. For pole position, we're heading to the British Lawnmower Racing Association 12-hour race held near Wisborough Green, 5 Oaks on the A29. And if you want to come and support us, please do. It is the most important race meeting in the whole of the world this weekend, and it's happening somewhere around there. That sticker has now covered most of southern England. Well, that's it, and you'll see me, just me, again next week here in the race room. Until then, subscribe for free.
The worst thing was with the windscreen and I couldn't see anything.